Welcome to the greatest podcast in sports betting entertainment. My name is Tanner Kern, certified G, bona fide stud, and you can't teach that. In this right here, this is G Money Grant Mitchell. We are here breaking down college football, the most heated debates in college football, and you can't teach that. Bada boom, man, the people in the room. G Money Grant Mitchell, how you doing?
I'm doing very good, Tanner. In addition to the conference championship games this weekend, I have a gingerbread house decorating competition that I'm being dragged to. So got to go to the store. The rules are you're allowed to show up with a Ziploc bag of your own ingredients, I guess, and decorations, and then you can unlock more during the challenge. So after we record this, I'm going to be running to Target and looking for things I can put in a Ziploc bag to put on gingerbread house.
Why don't you just buy a kit?
Like a gingerbread house making kit?
Like most Americans.
Well, what am I going to do? I'm going to take the kit and disassemble it and put it all in the Ziploc bag?
Yeah. Duh.
Nah, it seems like too much effort. I'm going to go to the store, just hand pick out some different candies and decorations. Maybe I'll get a little Hot Wheels car and I'll put it on the top and it can be riding along the roof.
Do they give you the gingerbread?
Yes, they supply all that stuff.
Gotcha. So you just need to bring the decorations.
Exactly. Yes. And I have to be strategic too, because we can win some things during the competition. So I got to think about what are they going to allow me to win. And I got to bring other stuff.
Grant, do you think UConn has a chance to make the college football playoff?
Just no interest in that conversation. No, I don't, Tanner. I'm sorry.
All right. Well, let's throw a scenario out there. UConn went 8-4, I believe, right? 8-4.
Why are we talking about this?
Because I saw the UConn helmet in the background up here, if you can see it. Right there.
Yeah.
So I saw the UConn helmet and I thought about that. Let's just throw a scenario out there. If UConn, because the committee does not care about quality wins at all. They just care about winning your conference schedule, it seems, because we let everybody in. It's like everyone gets a trophy right now, except if you're Bama. Bama will jump people. But Maryland, Duke, Wake Forest, and Syracuse, 4 losses. So I guess they went 4-0 in their, or 0-4 in their power conference games. I think they might have beat one. I don't know. But if you go 12-0, say UConn went 12-0 with their dog water schedule, and they get another, 500,000 in NIL, so they got the players to go 12-0. Is UConn in the conversation to make the college football playoff? They have to be, right?
People are clicking off of this video because we are talking about this right now.
But this is just hypotheticals. And then
if
we're going to
UConn went 12-0, would they get in the playoff?
Would they? Yeah, that's a serious question because the committee does not care about wins.
No, they wouldn't.
Okay, well, they would definitely be in the top 25.
They would still be behind Boise.
Yeah, probably, but still, 12-0 UConn. Never know. Anyways, we had a very good show last time, so we appreciate everyone who
and we
commented.
Decided to start this one off with UConn.
Why not? Why not? Why not? I saw it right there. You got to talk about it. Anyway, it's a good segue. It's a meaningful segue because the committee does not care about who you beat. It just cares about winning games. But anyways, Grant, we had a good show last time. A lot of people got in the comments about Bama. We're going to talk about Bama today. But before we do that, we need to talk about WSN. So Grant, why don't you tell them about WSN?
Yeah, as I always say, this is the plug that you hear on every show, but WSN.com is the #1 place to be if you're into sports betting. Tanner, myself, and a lot of other very qualified experts within the industry, we give out betting picks. We do game analyses. You can get promo codes so you can have a more profitable and enjoyable experience with sports betting. WSN.com, #1 place to be, whether you like college football, hockey, basketball, soccer, tennis, whatever. You'll find it all over there.
Definitely. So you guys can also do the free-to-play NFL Pick'em contest, $499 in value. Basically, you make your picks every week. If you have the best picks, you're entered in a contest at the end of the month to potentially win $499. Pretty cool stuff. So make sure you guys check that out. That is linked in the description below as well. Grant, first thing we want to talk about before we break down who's going to win some of these college football conference championship games is just the fact that tell me you're a mid-major conference by where you play your conference championship game. Like this is not getting out of hand, but I think we should allow the mid-majors to at least have a neutral site, whether it's at a warm weather location, whether it's in the dome if you're a cold weather team, because when you look at the schedule right now, Western Kentucky and Jacksonville State are playing at Jacksonville Stadium. Then you look at Ohio, Miami, that's a Ford Field. The MAC does a good job there. Marshall, Louisiana is at Lafayette, Louisiana. That's at the home of the Raging Cajuns. And then what's the other one, Grant?
Army's hosting Tulane at West Point. Boise's hosting UNLV in Boise.
And people will say this is cool. Like people, there are some people in the comments or just in general think it's cool to play college football conference championships at the home stadium. No, it's not. It's not cool at all because nobody wants to see that. Let the kids have some fun. Like when you're talking about number 20 UNLV versus number 10 Boise State for a ticket to the college football playoff, and you're playing that at Boise State, maybe makes it a little cooler because of that. But at the same time, too, the conference championship game should be at a neutral site. Celebrate the kids who got there.
I'm with you on that. And I also think that especially with the Boise UNLV game, maybe it doesn't matter quite as much for Western Kentucky, Jacksonville State, but Boise UNLV in particular, really whichever one is at that top of the G5, this is basically a play-in game for the college football playoff. So you're giving Boise a pretty hefty advantage there by allowing them to play it at home. Now, I like that the first round of the playoff is hosted by the team with the better seed because both teams have earned it. Both teams have gotten to that point. But it's a championship game. And in a championship game, imagine if the Super Bowl was hosted by the team with the better record every year. It doesn't seem fair. So I'm with you. I like the home field advantage in the playoff, but not in a conference championship game. Let's be professional. Let's get a neutral venue for everybody.
So let's start with Boise State and UNLV because we're on the topic here. UNLV currently 20th in the college football playoff rankings, and then you have Boise State at number 10. If UNLV wins this game tonight, knowing Boise State beat them earlier in the season, knowing people probably want to see Ashton Jeanty in the college football playoff, Boise State would be 11-2, and then UNLV would also be 11-2. Does UNLV jump them for winning this game tonight?
Well, the first thing I'm doing here is I'm pulling up the rankings. So Boise State was 10th in the latest rankings, and UNLV was 20th. Now, if you look at some of the other teams that are in contention for that G5 spot, Army is at 24, Memphis is at 25, and I'm looking for Tulane, and I don't even see them on here. So it really should come down to one of those two. It really should come down to Boise versus UNLV. I think UNLV you would make the case for them traditionally based on what we know, just because they won the last game, right? Remember when Bama and Georgia, I think it was last year when Bama and Georgia met in the SEC championship game, and Georgia deserved to go to the playoff, but they just lost at the wrong time. They lost the last game of the year to the wrong opponent. So I think traditionally we would see UNLV get in. However, the committee has put an emphasis on not wanting to punish the loser of a conference championship game. So I feel like that, combined with the fact Ashton Jeanty is going to be a top 2 Heisman finisher, Boise would probably still get in my opinion. But I do think there's a very good case for UNLV.
But going off the subject of not wanting to punish teams in your conference championship game, did you listen to Ward Manuel after the rankings were revealed at all?
No, I didn't.
So he was very open with this. He's like, we're meant to evaluate college football throughout the entire season. That means through the conference championship games. And then he also opened the door for like a Bama to jump SMU. If SMU loses, will they be punished kind of thing? And he was basically like, we're going to evaluate it all. And it's very possible. Like everything is still possible at this time. So I agree. They said originally they don't want to punish teams for playing in the conference championship game, but it's very like for a group of 5 game, I think it's very easy to punish a team for losing in the conference championship. But the saving grace for Boise State is Ashton Jeanty and the fact that people probably want to see Boise in more than UNLV. But one thing that people want to see, and they're not people want to see, I wouldn't say that, but there's a lot of people out there on Twitter, the Twitter trolls that hate the Tide, the Crimson. There's Bama bias. And everyone's saying like Bama's trash, Bama's trash, Bama's trash. For everyone knows for damn sure that if Bama gets in and they get the schedule of Notre Dame and then they get to go play the group of 5 champion, which would be Boise State, they're probably going to the semifinals. Very good chance of that if they can get by Notre Dame. So would the committee, Grant, for viewership jump Bama over SMU if SMU loses in the conference championship? What do you think?
Well, there's a lot to talk about here, and I kind of want to build off of something you had said about a minute ago, which is maybe the committee's sentiment of not wanting to punish the loser of the conference championship. Maybe that holds true for the Big Ten, which is going to get 4 teams. Maybe it holds true for the SEC, which is going to get a minimum of 3 teams, maybe 4 as well. Maybe the ACC, the G5, maybe it does come down to, no, we're going to punish the loser because we view this as, first of all, a league or a conference where you haven't earned that much respect. You're really probably only going to get 1 spot. So we kind of have to distinguish you somehow. And in this case, is that if SMU does lose to Clemson, I would feel bad because they've firmly been one of the 12 most impressive teams, maybe not the 12 best, but as far as what they've done this season, they've only lost once, and it was by 3 points to BYU, who started the year 9-0, whatever it was. But yeah, if SMU loses, they're probably going to be out. I think that the committee would look at everything. They would say, if we give SMU as much belief as we can, it's a pick 'em on a neutral field with Bama. And realistically, they're probably going to look at Bama as the better team. And we know, I think everybody would agree that whether you think SMU is better, whether you think Bama is better, Bama has a better chance to win a national championship just because of Kalen DeBoer, because of Jalen Milroe, Ryan Williams. They've got the top end to go out there and do it more than SMU does.
Well, I think you can't necessarily punish a team for playing in the conference championship game overall, but in this case, you really can, because when you look at SMU, and Bama's in a good spot, I think, no matter what here, because at least SMU doesn't have a loaded schedule and they've beaten 3 ranked opponents. And like, this is a team coming from the American Conference into the ACC for the first time, playing really well. But when you look at the schedule right now, they have not been tested by anyone. They don't have one current ranked win, a win over a ranked team right now. They beat number 22 Louisville earlier in the season. We know what happened with Louisville. They fell apart later in the year. They're a bowl team, but they are not, they're 8-4, unranked 8-4 team. Then they beat a Pitt team, I believe is 7-5 right now, lost their final 4 or 5 games of the season. They were ranked at the time. So you don't have that ranked marquee win on your schedule. Now you got a Clemson team that still Clemson. I know they're a little down, but still you're beating Dabo. You got a big opportunity here. And if you lose, and you lose close, well, if you lose close, like, nobody thought Clemson was good either. But if you win big, you're in. And if you lose big, you're probably out, because Bama has the win over Georgia. They have the win over LSU. They have bad losses, but those bad losses are also in the SEC, and they're a 3-loss team. So if you're a 2-loss SMU with the conference championship loss in a game that you were tested in, like the first test you've really had this season, or you take Bama, who's a 3-loss team and probably would have gone undefeated with your ACC schedule, and you look at the committee and you say, well, the rankings favor Bama. If these guys played head-to-head on a neutral field, Bama would win. I think you got to put Bama in. But it's going to anger a lot of people.
It will anger a lot of people. And to play devil's advocate here, because South Carolina beat Clemson last weekend, there were a lot of people saying that that's a good win, and that's why South Carolina deserves to be in the field. Well, if you're in that crowd, you don't have the right to say, if SMU loses this weekend, Clemson's not that good, so they don't deserve to get in. You can't have it both ways. If you were saying that, because if you were just saying that Ole Miss or Alabama deserves to get in last weekend, then fine, you're good. If you were arguing that South Carolina win against Clemson was a big win, then it's not fair to say SMU loses to Clemson, they can't get in as well. I think this is all kind of a moot point. I think SMU is going to win this game. Clemson performed better than I expected, even though they were favored. I had South Carolina winning, thought they'd do it by a touchdown. That was a close game. Klubnik made a huge costly error lately. Clemson's got a lot of issues on their offensive line. They're very banged up, and SMU's a very explosive team, so I still expect them to win this game, and I kind of hope they do, to be honest, because if the ACC is going to be a one-bid league and it's going to be Clemson, they're not. I mean, Miami is better than Clemson and SMU is better than Clemson. I don't want them going to represent the conference.
Well, I don't know if Miami's is better than Clemson.
Well, I'm not defending Miami as a great team. I just don't think Clemson is that good.
No, but I can't sit here and say SMU's that good either. We don't know. They haven't played anybody.
They have, well, ironically, none of the top 3. So Clemson, Miami, SMU, they did not play each other. And all of them pretty much played the same schedule, apart from the fact Clemson played the 2 SEC games. So, I guess props to them for increasing their strength of schedule, but they lost them both. They lost to Georgia 34-3, and then they only scored 14 points against South Carolina. Neither one of those are necessarily impressive showings.
No, I agree. 100%, Grant. I want SMU to win this football game because I want Alabama in, because college football is better when Alabama is in the college football playoff. And everybody online that's angry about this Bama bias thing, saying Bama shouldn't be considered as a 3-loss Bama team, that's crazy, because one of the final spots is going to be a 3-loss team unless you put Miami in, who hasn't played anybody. If you put people can't conceptualize, if you put these SEC teams in the ACC, they would dominate. They would be the best. The SEC just beats each other up week after week after week. And I think that's something that we're going to see here in the SEC championship game. Ready to move on, Grant?
It's a fine line of, yes, the SEC is the best league in the country, but also not discrediting the work that other teams have done. Because again, let's take this weekend off the cards. SMU so far, 1 loss to a team that started the year 9-0, and it was by 3 points. It's not a bad loss. I think it was I can't remember if it was Kirby or Lane Kiffin, but they were talking about the quality of losses that the SEC teams incur. Texas lost and they fell down the rankings, but they lost to Georgia. So who really cares? It was something about that. And I was making the case, whoever it was, Kiffin, Kirby, they were saying that kind of to discredit Indiana at the time. I was making the case of, you can't talk about quality losses when Indiana just lost to Ohio State, at Ohio State. That's about as quality of a loss as it gets. So I think what this 12-team playoff has done more than anything is it's really made us see there's no one way to judge every team. There's going to be some people prefer quality wins and losses. Some people prefer records. Some people prefer metrics. And it does depend on which team you're talking about in the context as to what's actually going to happen. Because going into the year, I wouldn't have wanted a 3-loss team in this playoff. But at the same time, you got to say Bama is more deserving than Miami, even though Miami has a better record.
Yeah, you got to say Bama's more deserving than Miami. I don't know how people can make that argument. And then you got to say that Bama is better than South Carolina because they beat South Carolina. And then Ole Miss is better. People thought South Carolina was going to jump all these teams, and Ole Miss jumps them because Ole Miss beat South Carolina. Head-to-head matters. And it's I don't care if it was a 2-point loss. I don't care if it was a blowout loss. If you lost to a team, you should not be ranked ahead of them when you have the same exact schedule.
Yeah, I agree. And as it stands, this will change based on the results this weekend. But as it stands, and I think you said this already, but Alabama would be the 11 going on the road to face Notre Dame. And I'm trying to get the full bracket here. They would play SMU because SMU is expected to win the game. So it would be Bama on the road against Notre Dame and then SMU at a neutral field. They probably win both those games.
Yeah, and if Notre Dame does beat Bama, which I honestly think it's going to be tough for Notre Dame. If Jalen Milroe shows up, if Jalen Milroe doesn't show up, Bama has no chance. But if he shows up, they can win national championship. But whoever gets that path to go play Bama or Bama Notre Dame, that would be a great matchup. Bama against Notre Dame, and then going in to play SMU. You're going to semifinals, and then you're going to play that SEC Georgia Texas matchup. So it should be really interesting on that side of the bracket. But Bama's in a really good spot right now. Obviously, they're going to be sitting there rooting hard for SMU on Saturday night. But even if SMU loses, and hopefully it's by a lot for Bama's case, they're probably going to get in because it's Bama and the brand bias and the ratings. And if your playoff ratings are going to go down severely if Bama is not in.
The way I see it also, I think the loser of the Big Ten championship, whether it's Oregon, Penn State, I think they're locked into the 5. I think Notre Dame is locked into the 6. And I think the loser of the SEC championship game, again, Georgia, Texas, probably locked into the 7. So, and Bama, if they get in, is going to be the 11. Big 12 going to be the 12. And then you can kind of move Tennessee, Ohio State, Indiana around 8, 9, 10, wherever you want to put them.
Yeah, definitely. Ready to talk about some of these conference championship games, Grant?
Let's get into it.
Georgia versus Texas. First off, we got to talk about Carson Beck's Snapchats.
So are these all recent? 'Cause he has different haircuts and all of them. I know at least one is old. I don't know about the other two.
No, I think the newest one that's circulating, or is let me show you this package.
Yeah.
I think that one is new and he's getting confidence because the first one he's like asking he's like, would you please show, like, remember they showed, that was when all the Snapchats of the SEC quarterbacks came out and KJ Jefferson was like, let me show you this.
Yeah.
And then he was like, please, can you send me a picture? And then now
And he wasn't even looking at the camera either.
No, now he's just, he's like looking up. Like, that's not my quarterback. That's a backup quarterback. Now we look at Carson Beck's evolution over the past 3 weeks. Like, Carson Beck's playing like one of the best quarterbacks in the country, and we can see why now. But my one thing is, like, this probably isn't new because he's dating the Cavender twin.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, so I don't know when this one came out, but it's circulating the internet right now.
It's not just him. I mean, the SEC quarterbacks, they're running rampant. I've seen Jackson Dart. I've seen Lagway. There's another one that I just saw too.
Yeah, I mean, these guys got to know that these are gonna get circulated. But I saw somebody in the comments on like the Carson Beck post, and they're like, this is embarrassing for a future NFL franchise to have this. Like, is it really? Like, these kids are 18 and they're SEC quarterbacks. Like, stop it.
Yeah, they're young, successful, famous, and they're horny. Like, it is, it is what it is. Everybody, that's the thing. Even these C-level executives at Fortune 500 companies, they were all horny teenagers at one point too. Everybody's gone through that phase.
Yeah. So, I mean, shout out Carson Beck. He's playing like that Snapchat, whatever. So I want to get the exact.
I don't really want you to read it.
I'm going to, because the people want to know what we're talking about if they haven't seen it. But I'm going to get the exact wording here for the people because I'm a man of the people. All right, let's see here. How about I show you this package and we'll see how fast your calendar opens up. That's not even bad. He could be talking about a package from Amazon for all we know. But that's the kind of confidence that we're getting with Carson Beck right now. And that's what I'm trying to say here. Like, he is playing like that. Like, he's playing like that is his mentality on the field too. So a lot of people.
You know what's funny? I think these two things are actually a little related too. Like, I know we're being funny, but I think there is something to this.
Carson Beck literally had like, the other Snapchat that we're not talking about. He had like someone say, someone please blow my brains out so I don't have to play football anymore. Like, that was one of the other Snapchats he had. So, like, the fact that he's happy in his Snapchats definitely parallels to what he's doing on the football field too. And he's playing confident right now. So it wouldn't surprise me if these Snapchats are pretty recent.
Yeah, Carson Beck in the middle of the season, I think it was a 6-week stretch where he had 12 interceptions, and his last 3 games, 11 touchdowns, no turnovers. We talked about it on the last show. A lot of people looked at that Georgia Tech win as a terrible win, and Georgia fell in the AP poll because it wasn't impressive. And while it might not have been impressive as a performance, it's something that brings the team together. And when you're going to a neutral venue, it's still in Atlanta, but you're not in your home stadium. You're facing a Texas team that is hungry. It's their first year in the conference. They want to prove themselves. And let's be honest, Texas has been better week in, week out than Georgia has. Now, they haven't played a lot of teams, but they've still been better. So you need something if you're Georgia. And that type of win and this confidence that you're getting from Carson Beck, if you don't quite have the team to do it, you need something to get you over the hump. That's what gets you over the hump.
Yeah, I'm a big Carson Beck guy now. After that Georgia Tech game, and I've been watching them every week because I do have a ticket on them win the national championship, and just they've been in big games. But I'm a Carson Beck guy after that performance against Georgia Tech, and we talked about this last time. That was the best possible win you could have had if you were Georgia coming into the SEC championship game, because those wins bring you together. And I think we're going to see that against Texas. I can't get a read on Texas. I don't know if they're good. I don't know if they're bad. They haven't really played anybody. They just beat Texas A&M, obviously, didn't score in the second half. I think they have a really good run game. But when this comes down to the quarterbacks, I trust Carson Beck a lot more than I do Quinn Ewers. When it comes down to the coaching, I trust Kirby Smart a lot more than I do Steve Sarkisian. However, it would not surprise me if Texas wins this game, because everything had to go right for Georgia in the last time when they smoked them in Austin. Like, Carson Beck wasn't playing well. But if Carson Beck comes out and plays well, Georgia can easily win this game.
Yeah, I don't know that I would say everything went right for them. Defensively, it certainly did. But, I mean, like you said, Carson Beck had 175 yards, no touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Like, if he's average, that probably gets Georgia at least another touchdown, and now we're talking about a 20-point win.
Well, I just look at both quarterbacks were trash the last time they played.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind
I
of
mean,
what it came down
don't
to.
forget, Texas benched Ewers. They put Arch in there to see if he could do anything. And they quickly realized, no, okay, he's overmanned too. We got to put Ewers back in.
Yeah, well, Josh Pate, I was listening to his breakdown of this game, and he summarized it a little bit how the last one went, and I was watching it, but like to think how he broke it down. Like Georgia did not drive the field one time. Like their scoring drives were inside the 50 pretty much every time. I think they might have had one where they drove the field, and they smoked them. Don't get me wrong, but this is a game where I don't think you can look at 30-15 Georgia and say Georgia's a better team than Texas. And I don't think you can look at it and say Texas is a better team than Georgia because the quarterback didn't play well.
No, yeah, it was a whole lot of short fields. Georgia put themselves in good positions, and Texas kind of, even though Carson Beck threw 3 interceptions, Texas shot themselves in the foot really more than Georgia did. I remember Carson Beck threw a pick, and I think Texas returned it to like the 20 or the 15, and they got a touchdown off of that. But other than that, their turnovers didn't prove to be that costly. You know, that's going to be magnified in a championship game, but then it boils down to, well, who do we trust to be the leader of a championship game? Do we trust Sark or do we trust Kirby? And I still trust Kirby in this game. I know Texas is favored. I know it's a quote unquote neutral field. I'm giving Georgia points for being at home here, with the way that they've been playing recently and just the way that they showed up in some of their big games. You know, you love to talk about them showing the spirit and the resiliency to come back against Alabama, even though they did lose. They're down 28-0 in the first quarter. They end up taking a late fourth quarter lead. And then we saw how their defense traveled on the road. I would take Georgia to win this game. And that makes me a little nervous because it's very hard to beat a team 3 times in a row. So if they were to meet again in the playoff, I think that almost gives Texas an advantage by losing 2 times already, because you learn more in your losses as far as film and things you can adapt and change than you do in wins.
Yeah, I kind of want Georgia to lose this game because I think if they get Indiana in the first round, they will smoke Indiana. And then they're going to go play Texas again, the way the bracket's set up. So that's what's concerning to me right now. If Georgia did lose this game, if Georgia won this game, Texas would go play Indiana and then play Georgia in the semifinals again.
So let me jump in here. I saw some. You know how we always in the off season we'll talk about like this is the way too early top 25 whatever. Yeah. I saw the way too early betting odds. FanDuel put out some odds based on the latest bracket, and they said if this is what happens, I believe Georgia was favored by 11. It was either 11.5 or 12.5 over Indiana.
Yeah. It was 10 or 11, I think.
Okay, we'll go with 11.
Yeah, it's double digits. Yeah, it's double digits.
I think it would be, well, that would be tough for Indiana because it would be in Samford. I think it would be a very fun game. Don't get me wrong. Like I think Indiana, this is the thing about that Ohio State loss. A lot of people are trying to use that to discredit Indiana. And, you know, Indiana's offense was horrific. Their defense was actually very good. If you go back and watch the game, the Indiana defense stood up. But it's a bunch of guys that were playing at JMU, and their quarterback was at Ohio, not Ohio State, Ohio. They weren't supposed to really play well in that game. It was a completely new level of intensity, physicality. Most of those guys probably never played in front of a crowd like that in their entire lives. That experience will be good for them. I think they would play Georgia better than they played Ohio State. Not saying they would win, but Kurt Cignetti's done a great job with that team. Their defense is very underrated, and their offense has been really explosive. So I think that actually has the potential to be a good game, at least exciting, even though Georgia would probably still win.
Yeah, I agree with that. And the big matchup is going to be that semifinal because that'll be the third, or the quarterfinal, because that'll be the third time Georgia and Texas probably play. So I am rooting for Texas in this one in a close win. I think Georgia can win the game. And it comes down to, as well, both these teams are going to the college football playoff. So how much are you, if something goes wrong in this game, like how much resiliency are you going to see? Like Georgia last week against Georgia Tech, in-state rivalry, fighting for their lives, because then you go to this game and you kind of have to win this game. Where now neither team has to win and they know they're going to play each other again. So how much are the coordinators going to start putting stuff in that neither team has seen before? Like, are they going to save it for the semifinal game, right? Like that's the stuff you got to think about coming into this one as well from a betting perspective.
Speaking of a betting perspective, can I share my favorite bet from this game with you?
Yes.
So I've seen a lot of people talking about the over, the under. I think both make sense. Honestly, I've heard some good cases on both sides. My favorite play is actually the second half to be the higher scoring half. It's minus 105 odds. The way I look at it, Georgia started a lot of games slowly this year. They're not taking the Dan Campbell approach. Like if we get to the 50 and it's 4th and 1 on our first drive of the game, they're punting. They're playing safe. They're trusting their experience. They're trusting their defense. We saw they didn't score a single point in the first half against Georgia Tech. And Texas, Quinn Ewers has not been great recently. He's on a sprained ankle. How much are they really going to show? And, like you were saying, how much are the coordinators going to show? How much are they going to open up the playbook? When you get to later in the game, both teams are going to be forced to be more aggressive, just the way that games are played. If one of them gets the ball, 2 minutes left, they're going to have to try to drive the field. I think it makes sense that this is a game that starts slowly, maybe as a big finish.
Yeah, I agree with that. And that's a fun bet too, because you're sitting there like looking for an under in the first half and looking for an over in the second half. So I like that one just off your explanation, but I like how that one feels in my stomach right now. Feel good about that one.
That's good. I like to hear that.
All right, Grant. So you got Georgia. I'm going to say Texas wins because I think Texas is better than what they showed last time, but I don't really believe that, if that makes sense. I'm just kind of trying to talk it into existence that Texas wins this game. All right, Penn State versus Oregon. I'm concerned for the health and safety of the Penn State football team this weekend. I think Oregon's much better.
What's interesting, and I talked about this on the last show too, and this, but I do some odds making stuff, and like I have models and everything that I run them through, and they're pretty accurate for the most part. And they love Penn State because Penn State's got some very good metrics as far as just point differential, efficiency on third down in the red zone, yards per point, yards per play, all that stuff. Penn State's had a very impressive season. The problem is that, they played 2 ranked teams. One of them was Illinois. Who really cares about that? They played Ohio State. They only scored 13 points at home. And James Franklin in his career 1-13 against the top 5. It's like this is the same case with Penn State every year too. It's like, if it's going to happen, it's going to be this year. They've got the team. They've been playing really well. They've got home field advantage, et cetera, and they always lose. They always fall on their face.
Yeah, he can't win a big game. That's what it comes down to for Penn State. And I would love, like, nothing would make me happier than to see Penn State make a run in the college football playoff. I think that would be fun, but they're not very good.
I worry about them. So, I mean, Oregon, I don't know how you feel about this. I think Oregon has the most speed as far as from quarterback to strong safety, the whole 11 on both sides. I think they've got the most speed of any team in the country. I think Oregon can get close to matching them, and I know they have the physicality to do the same, probably even more physicality than Oregon. I worry about, Drew Allard was not good against Ohio State, but even if he is good in this game, I just don't know that they have the playmaking outside the numbers to really stand up to what Oregon's going to do, because Oregon's going to be able to score points. It might not be 35 or 40. They'll get to the 20s. And I don't know that the Penn State receivers, and I don't know that their outside run game is going to allow them to do that.
Why would you even want to win this game though? Like if you're Penn State, looking at the bracket, I know the bracket's going to change a lot, but if you get to play Arizona State in the first round and then go play Boise State in the second round, and then you meet either Ohio State, Tennessee, or Oregon in the semifinals, why wouldn't you want to have that path rather than playing, being the 1 seed and then meeting the winner of Ohio State, Texas in the quarterfinals?
It's a conversation that's being had, and it's one of the issues. As much as I love the 12 team and I love the new format, this is an issue. And I think the solution is kind of like the NFL playoffs, where after the first round, you need to have a reseeding, because it should not be like this. To your point, you're getting the advantage of having the bye week, but you're facing a much more difficult opponent. And if you are the 5 seed, you don't get a bye, but you get home field advantage, which is just as much of a help as a bye week at that point.
Yeah, definitely. It's a very hard, and you still get a bye week too when you really think about it. These games aren't until December 21st. So you win this weekend, then you don't play for 2 weeks. So
then at that point, we're having the conversation about have you been off for too long? Are you rusty?
Yeah, so I'd rather almost not have the bye if I have an easy first round game, because I don't play till December 21st, and it's going to be December. You're going to get 2 full weeks off, which is good for these teams. So everyone gets a bye. Then you're off for 3 weeks, and then it comes to, well, this team's coming off a big win last week. They played well, they played hard, and now they're coming in and we haven't played in 3 weeks. That's tough for the team with the bye week.
Yeah, it is. I mean, we talk about that in the NFL a lot. Like at this point, do you want to be the 1 seed in the playoffs?
But even in the NFL too, like so you're off for 1 week. You have a legit 1 bye week. I think that's fine. I think that's good to recover. 2 weeks is enough in itself. These kids are going to be itching to play. Nobody wants to practice for 3 weeks. So it's almost better if this was the bracket, Penn State has a much better chance of making the semifinals through the 5 seed than they do a top seed with Oregon. But I will say this, Penn State would not be number 1. That's another thing we need to think about too. So like looking at
and another thing.
Go
ahead. Sorry.
So like looking at this though, like okay. Oregon's gonna say Penn State won this game. Penn State's the 3 seed looking to play Notre Dame or Alabama in the quarterfinal game. Texas goes to the 1 seed. That moves Texas away from Georgia. So then Texas would await the winner of Ohio State and Tennessee.
And also with bye weeks, I don't know how you look at it. I think bye weeks largely magnify your coach. So let's say Penn State is able to beat Oregon and they get 3 weeks off. I would rather a Kirby Smart, a Dan Lanning have 3 weeks to prepare and practice, and we're going to hone in on these details, than a James Franklin, knowing how he's held up when it's been about coaching.
Yeah, definitely. I would rather not have James Franklin in a big game. Penn State has the path to get to where they need to go, but James Franklin can't win a big game. He knows he can't win a game. People bust on him for not being able to win a big game. He gets in fights with fans that tell him he can't win the big game, and these are all big games. So it's probably not a good sign for Penn State.
The least exciting of the P4, Iowa State, Arizona State. Any thoughts on this one?
I like that coach for Arizona State. He's 34. He's got a fire. He said no picky in the kitty or something. No pity with the kitty. You saw that speech?
Yeah.
I like that guy. I think he's got those kids run through a brick wall. He will be the next big time Power 5 coach, Power 4 coach now, somewhere. But congrats to Arizona State. They're going to the college football playoff.
So you're just done with Iowa State. You're not even giving them a shot.
No, Arizona State. The coach is too good.
Yeah, Iowa State. A lot of their games have been close recently. It's a 1-score game with Kansas State, 1-score game with Utah. You beat Cincinnati 34-17. Who cares? You lose back-to-back before that. 1-score game with UCF. It's been very close, playing within the margins as of late. And to your point on the Arizona State coach, Dillingham, I saw he got I think it was a $200,000 bonus for hitting a certain amount of wins. And he split it up and gave, I think, $10,000 a piece to 20 of his assistants. It's just what you want. You know what I mean? Like, that's a guy who's got people believing in him. The building is unified. And Arizona State is also just playing very well. They've got a very physical running back. Their quarterback is a freshman, but he's putting the ball where he needs to go. I like Arizona State in this one as well.
Yeah, I like that. He's making $3.95 million, gives back some of it to the coaches. Smart move there. I like Arizona State. I think they're going to the college football playoff. It's not as fun without Colorado. I'll say that. This would be a lot more fun if Colorado was in that game, and they blew it because they had every opportunity to win the Big 12 this year. But it is what it is, Grant.
So I believe if that is the case, then I just want to pull up the bracket to make sure I have this right. But we have Oregon as our 1. You've got Texas. I've got Georgia as the 2. We both have SMU as the 3, and then we would have Boise as the 4. And then Penn State as our 5, Notre Dame as our 6. I have Texas, you have Georgia as the 7. We would both get Tennessee, Ohio State as the 8, 9, and then Indiana as our 10, Bama as our 11.
Yeah. And we both agree if SMU loses, Bama's getting in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, whether SMU wins or loses, Bama gets in. I think I think there's only one ACC team no matter what happens.
Yeah, I agree with that. Right now, odds to make the college football playoff, Bama is currently minus 430 to get in. SMU's minus 430 as well. I think SMU plus 300 to not get in. If you like Clemson to win the football game and you're looking for some plus money, a little more risk, take SMU plus 300 to not make it because you're going to get a bigger payout.
Yeah, there's no way Bama is minus 430 and then SMU is plus 300. Those things don't equate. That's them telling you you're getting one ACC team in this no matter what happens. So, like you said, if you're thinking of putting Clemson money line, put it on SMU to miss the playoff. You're going to get like double the value.
Yeah, definitely. But anyways, guys, that was Ride the Line, the greatest podcast in sports betting entertainment. Grant, why don't you take us out of here?
Well, first of all, before I do, when we meet up next week, I'll report back on how the gingerbread competition goes. I know you're waiting to hear about that, but like Tanner said, guys, that is going to do it for this episode. We appreciate you all being here. Please hit the like button before you click off. Hit the subscribe button as well. Enjoy the college football this weekend, and we will catch you all on the next episode of Ride the Line.